Where no counsel is, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14. But let it be the hidden man of the heart, in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God, of great price. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 4. For his anger endureth but a moment, in his favor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. Psalm 30, verse 5. He that walketh uprightly walketh surely, but he that perverteth his ways shall be known. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 9. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. Colossians chapter 2, verse 8. Now the God of patience and consolation grant you to be like-minded, one toward another, according to Christ Jesus. Romans chapter 15, verse 5. But now is Christ risen from the dead, and become the firstfruits of them that slept. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 20. But now ye also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. Colossians chapter 3, verse 8. My little children, these things write I unto you, that ye sin not. And if any man sin, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ, the righteous. 1 John chapter 2, verses 1 to 29. Rejoice not against me, O mine enemy. When I fall, I shall arise. When I sit in darkness, the Lord shall be a light unto me. Micah chapter 7, verse 8. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 9. But know that the Lord hath set apart him that is godly for himself. The Lord will hear when I call unto him. Psalm 4, verse 3. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be greatly moved. Psalm 62, verse 2. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace, and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. Ye see then how that by works a man is justified, and not by faith only. James chapter 2, verse 24. For by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 14. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation, to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. Romans chapter 1, verse 16. Knowing this, that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin. Romans chapter 6, verse 6. Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. Romans chapter 6, verse 4. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. Romans chapter 8, verses 5 to 6. Let your speech be alway with grace seasoned with salt, that ye may know how ye ought to answer every man. Colossians chapter 4, verse 6. Who gave himself for us, that he might redeem us from all iniquity, and purify unto himself a peculiar people, zealous of good works. Titus chapter 2, verse 14. And he answering said, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. Luke chapter 10, verse 27. He that giveth unto the poor shall not lack, but he that hideth his eyes shall have many a curse. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 27. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things thou canst desire are not to be compared unto her. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 13 to 15. A wholesome tongue is a tree of life. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 4. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10. Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers, in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Matthew chapter 7, verses 16 to 20. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. Matthew chapter 24, verse 42. Hear counsel, and receive instruction, that thou mayest be wise in thy latter end. Proverbs chapter 19, verse 20. To do justice and judgment is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 3. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good, and acceptable, and perfect will of God. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 16.